unless, that is, Parliament votes to dissolve itself first. As we legislate to fix parliamentary terms, the details will, of course, need to be worked out. But we believe that the support of 55% of MPs or more should be required for Parliament to opt for an early dissolution. That is a much lower threshold than the 2/3 required in the Scottish Parliament. But it strikes the right balance for our Parliament, maintaining stability, stopping parties from forcing a dissolution to serve their own interests. Now, this last week, former Labour ministers who were once perfectly happy to ride roughshod over the rights of Parliament are now declaring that this is somehow an innovation which is a constitutional outrage. They are completely missing the point. This is a new right for Parliament, additional to the existing powers of no confidence. We're not taking away Parliament's right to throw out government. We're taking away government's right to throw out Parliament. Parliament's power will also be strengthened as we bring forward the proposals of the Right Committee, published in November, starting with provisions to give MPs much more control over the business of the House of Commons. In addition to strengthening Parliament, we will, of course, make sure we've cleaned it up, which is why I've already commissioned work on introducing the power of recall. If your MP is corrupt, you will be able to sack them. You will need the support of 10% of people living in the constituency, in your area, and your MP will have had to have been found guilty of serious wrongdoing. It happens in Switzerland, in Canada, in 18 US states, and it's going to happen here. We will regulate lobbying in Parliament. It's wrong to present all of lobbying as sleazy. Much of it is entirely legitimate, allowing different organisations and interests to make representations to politicians. But it is a process which must be completely transparent. Lobbying is a £2 billion industry, where, according to some estimates, there are MPs who are approached by lobbyists 100 times every week. So that activity needs to be regulated properly and made transparent, which we will do, for example, by introducing a statutory register of lobbyists. More broadly, as long as money plays such a big part in our politics, we're never going to curtail the influence of vested interests in politics. And that's why David Cameron and I are determined to reform party funding. All of the parties have had their problems, and governments have been stopping and starting on this issue for years. But so long as big money continues to hollow out our democracy, everybody loses. So we will pursue a detailed agreement on limiting donations and reforming party funding in order to deal with this once and for all. And in our big clean-up, we'll act to tackle electoral fraud too, speeding up the implementation of individual voter registration. And no programme to reform our political system is complete without reform of our voting system. This government will be putting to you, in a referendum, the choice to introduce a new voting system called the alternative vote. Under that system, MPs will have to secure the support from at least half the people who vote in their constituency. And hand in hand with that change, there will be new constituency boundaries, reducing the number of MPs overall and creating constituencies that are more equal in size. David Cameron and I are very relaxed about the fact that we may be arguing different cases in that referendum. But my position is clear. The current voting system, first past the post, is a major block to lasting political change. According to some estimates, the present system ensures that over half the seats in the Commons are safe, giving hundreds of MPs jobs for life, meaning that millions of people see their votes simply go to waste. Is it any surprise that with a system like that, we end up with politicians who are seen to be out of touch with the people they serve? New politics needs fairer votes, and this referendum will be our opportunity to start to make that happen. The third and final step is the redistribution of power away from the centre. It's something the Prime Minister spoke about yesterday, and it's something we both strongly believe in. All politicians say they want to give people more control over their lives. This government is going to make it happen. In fact, if there's one area where the differences between the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives is very difficult to spot, it's here. We don't, unlike Labour, believe that change in our society must always be forced from the centre. Unlike the previous Labour government, we're not reluctant to relinquish control. So rest assured, you will get more control over the hospitals you use, the schools you send your children to, the homes that are built in your community. In our legislative programme, we will be setting out plans to strip away government's unelected, inefficient quangos, plans to loosen the centralised grip of Whitehall bureaucracy, plans to disperse power downwards to you instead. And we're serious about giving councils much more power too over the money they use, so they depend less on the whims of Whitehall and can deliver the services and support that their communities need. We know that devolution of power is meaningless without money. Our plans to disperse power also include strengthening devolution to other parts of Britain, working with Holyrood to implement the recommendations of the Calman Commission, working with the Welsh Assembly on introducing a referendum on the transfer of further powers to Wales, supporting the continued success of the devolved government in Northern Ireland, and of course, asking what we can do about the difficult issues surrounding that old question, the West Lothian question. So, the repeal of illiberal laws, the reform of politics, and the redistribution of power. Our very own Great Reform Act. Not everyone will like it, not every MP, not the vested interests that want government to stay closed, opaque, easily captured. But this new government, this new kind of government, creates an enormous opportunity for those of us who have spent our lives fighting for political reform. This is a moment to step back and look at every shortcoming in our democracy before we launch the most radical programme of reform and empowerment in over a century. A shake-up so important to me that I will be taking direct responsibility for seeing it through. And as I do, I will be open, I will be ambitious, and I will listen. I'll still be holding my town hall meetings that I've been holding for the last 2 years around the country, where you can come and ask me whatever you want. The next one is actually in Sheffield on Friday, if you want to come. As I lead the transformation of our political system, I want you to tell me how you want your politics to be. Power will be yours. That is new politics. Thank you very much for listening to me. Questions, particularly from the students, as well as, yeah. Can't hear you, sorry. Oh, yeah. Hello again.
So will the Liberal Democrats keep on fighting for the proportional voting system, being on the referendum paper? Will you argue for a fair choice or fair vote? And will you wear purple?
Well, I have a nice range of purple ties, which I'll wear on appropriate occasions. No, the referendum will be on AV. That is what the referendum will be. You're right, we can disappear into the undergrowth of all the acronyms of different voting systems. AV is not as fully proportional as other systems, but that is what we're going to put to the vote. That is what I will argue for. That is what many people in government and across parties and beyond, I hope, will argue for, because it'll be a major step in first ensuring that the old first-past-the-post system is put behind us, if we're successful, and secondly, by ensuring that MPs have to secure more than 50% of the vote in their constituencies. That is a huge step forward, and combined with also the redrawing of the boundaries so that constituencies more equally represent roughly the same number of people, I think that will be a major breaking, if you like, of a deadlock which has which of course has prevailed for so very many decades. Nick?
Nick Robinson, BBC News. Thank you. You mentioned the rights of terror suspects.